Good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you again for joining us on the Party podcast. I am so excited to be talking with philosopher, artist, Moons and Hughes. Be sure to check out her her Substack, and her personal blog for thoughts related to philosophy, artificial intelligence, and the future of where we are going. Moons, do you feel alive today more than ever, or what?
I feel alive today. I do. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, cheers. It's good to check in every once in a while, Someday
Yeah.
we might wake up and feel like a switch is flipped and we're in the simulation or something.
Oh yeah, 2025 definitely feels like it has a different ring to it than as opposed to these most like recent years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of people are talking about acceleration. Do you feel like things are accelerating, or is it just normal life?
No, absolutely. I think I tweeted the other day that ever I feel like we've been in a time loop ever since COVID. Like it doesn't feel like the past 5 to 6 years were that long. I feel like things are really accelerating,
Yeah.
and I'm interested to see where things go this year.
Are you hopeful? Are you pessimistic? What's the general vibe at right now?
I'm hopeful. I think being pessimistic is of no use. It's counterproductive, and so I'd rather not.
Amen. Amen. Well, maybe we should start from the most pessimistic point possible and see if we can work our way back. Part of why I'm trying to have conversations with people is because I want to get prepared for a future where we are no longer in control
Yeah.
of potentially the country, maybe even our own thoughts. How would you feel about voting for an artificial intelligence in 2028? What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. So if we have AGI, right? I think we'll have AGI by sometime this year. At least that's what Sam Altman says, right? I'm not sure if he'll follow through on that or if
How do
anyone
you
else will follow through on that.
how do you think about AGI? Do you have a particular definition?
I don't think AGI is as powerful, or at least the way I perceive it is as powerful as other people may interpret it as. Like I just see it as more like general use AI system that like kind of goes like a little bit more beyond than just the standard like LLM, right?
Okay.
But I don't think it has like I guess like godlike capabilities.
Yeah, yeah.
But then that leads to the question like does an AI system need to have godlike capabilities in order for us to put one in office? Because humans obviously don't have that, right?
Yeah.
I'm already wary of voting for humans. And so I think whether or not I would vote for an AI system is very much dependent on I think maybe like who its programmers are, like what are the transparent like what's the transparency within that system? Are we are we applying like ethical frameworks into it? Like what like I guess I would just need a lot more detail.
Let's imagine the worst case scenario. I presume that would be like one singular person having control. Agree? Disagree?
Okay, yeah, that yeah, perhaps, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
On the opposite end
Well,
of that,
like you mean like an authoritative figure that is controlling this AI AGI system?
it's a good question. I mean, I don't believe that there are any morally superior people.
Okay.
I tend to think like if you were to trade places with someone and live their lives, you would make the exact same choices they would make.
Hmm.
So to me, it seems like the way to get around that is by creating the most transparent, the most democratically invested intelligence possible.
Hmm.
And it seems like we could scale it so that it only applies decisions based on how relevant those decisions are, how much they impact your life.
Hmm.
So questions about how we interact with China, whether or
Hmm.
not we use our tax dollars to settle the moon,
Hmm.
those should be national questions.
Hmm.
I do imagine it eventually scaling down to even helping local governments plan out infrastructure, plan out parks, and that seems like it should be things that only locals should get to vote on.
Yeah. Wait, what's your stance on having an AI system in office?
I think it's an inevitability. I'm the most concerned about a future where the elites use AI to replace the majority of the low level workers and then don't replace themselves and try and hold on to power for as long as possible.
I mean, we're already seeing that happen, right?
Yeah. If we replace the elites first or if we make them scared, like that is something everybody should be afraid of, that replacement.
So that kind of reminds me of um, like DeFi, like crypto stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
So like a currency that's like run by the people, it's decentralized, but instead of a currency, it would be a political figure, an AI political figure, like decentralized politicians. Is that what we're talking about here? An AI system that's run by the people.
I think it depends on if you believe in democracy or not. Can people vote for their well being? Can they act morally?
Mm,
Are you a believer in democracy in general? How do you feel about it?
I don't know. I don't know. I think when I was younger, I absolutely was a believer in democracy. I was like, if everyone has a say, everything's going to be good. Um, but I think there's a reason why a lot of philosophers thought that philosopher kings were to have like the only say, right?
Yeah.
And that like in many ways like is like elitist or classist or whatever you want to call it. But um I just don't think everyone has like every single individual has the best of opinions or decision making skills.
No, I think you're right. And I
Yeah.
think the thing that leads to that more often than not is a lack of transparency.
Yeah.
Like we're at a point right now, I don't know if you've been following like the UAP stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's just going so far off the rails to the point where people are claiming like telepathic abilities and all this things I would have considered insane even 6 months ago.
Yeah.
But there's such a lack of transparency with the government and what's going on. Now it makes me wonder.
Yeah.
We are seeing like,
That might change, right? That might change with this new administration, especially given that there were some executive orders signed to like release like the JFK, RFK, MLK files. So who knows if that like trend of transparency will continue.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what those release. I do wonder if there's like a super ethical, moral attractor point
Uh-huh.
in the future
Uh-huh.
where if not only us plebs and the elites
Uh-huh.
realize that they could be replaced, but also the AI recognizes that it could be replaced because we are kind of on like an evolutionary treadmill, right? It's either keep developing new capabilities or get stagnant and face extinction by something you didn't see coming.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're all in the same position, shouldn't we all have the same motivation? Like, shouldn't that naturally align us?
I mean, you would think so, right? But there, like historically, and even today, there has been many issues in which we're facing some kind of, I don't know, problem or some kind of like impending doom, real or not. I don't know. Everyone has different opinions.
Yeah.
Um, and we never saw like 100% like unity on some sort of issue, right? Like I mean, COVID was like a most recent example, right? Like
Yeah.
I still don't know what to think of it, but it was a very divisive issue, and you would think that um with a plague or whatever that people would kind of think the same things or have the same opinions on how to like get past it, but everyone just had different opinions, right? Not saying that anyone was right or wrong, but we didn't see like a cohesion amongst people, even like in regards to that.
My experience going through that, I was
Mhm.
very wary of everything we were being told because
Yeah,
it just didn't seem to make inherent sense.
yeah.
There were so many things that didn't align, which spoke to me about people hiding their true incentives.
Oh yeah.
I think potentially everybody's deepest incentive is to not die.
Yeah, so maybe the solution here is to just full transparency, right? Like would people be more so on the same page if there was full transparency amongst all parties that were involved in whatever.
Yeah. Part of what I'm thinking is for this whole project is like open sourcing my life to the point where I think we need privacy, right? For our own sense of self.
Are you gonna post your social?
Huh?
You're gonna post your social?
Yeah. Potentially everything, biometrics, the whole kit and caboodle. But like, I'm wondering, how do we walk the line of having enough privacy to maintain our sense of self, maintain our individuality, while
Mhm.
still engaging to the degree where people aren't questioning our motives? If somebody were to be able to like constantly surveil you, would you still feel, I mean, what do you think that would make you feel?
Um, I think full transparency is great, but we don't live in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
So you can be as transparent as you want, but what people do with that information is beyond your control,
Yeah.
right? Especially given just the AI tools that we have today. And then they're not even that great, but you just see like, well, like with deep fake stuff or like the fake phone calls for people using other people's voices. And so I think letting go of privacy leads to a lot of, I don't know, like issues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not on behalf of the person releasing their information, but like, like bad actors are using that for bad things.
Yeah, super bad things. But again, part of that is scarcity, right? Like, why do
Yeah.
bad actors do bad things
Mm,
when, if those bad things were exposed, it would have huge reputational damage to them?
yeah.
Are you familiar with the prisoner's dilemma?
Well, I
It's,
don't know. I don't think so.
and there might be other names for it too, but it's this idea of you and co-conspirator are brought into the police, and the
Uh-huh.
police say, "We know you guys did a crime together,"
Uh-huh.
and they separate you. They tell you, each of you, if you confess, you will get less punishment than your
Mhm.
partner will. If
Mhm.
neither of you confess, you're both going to go to jail for a long time, or you'll. If neither of you confess, you'll get a much lesser sentence.
Mhm.
But since you can't trust that person completely,
Mhm.
because they know if they do confess, they're facing a much more lenient sentence, their incentive is to sell you out.
Yeah.
But if we have something like life extension, if we potentially live for hundreds of years, if information becomes more free, if artificial intelligence opens the vaults of like all secrets eventually,
Mhm.
then it's no longer a one off game.
Yeah.
Now, if you squeal on your partner, the next time you two come together, they're going to know that and they're going
Mhm.
to be incentivized not to work with you at all.
Mhm.
So eventually, it seems to me like if we do move out of the scarcity of resources, of life, then eventually we'll all be incentivized to be better actors towards one another.
Yeah.
It's like that idea, who watches the watchers? If everybody has the power of watching each other,
Mhm.
I mean, the problem is it does sound so dystopian, you know? Like, I don't know how to sell people on that idea. That's why I'm potentially going to use myself as a guinea pig. I don't know.
So when you say you're gonna be fully transparent with your life, like what does that look like for you?
So, my idea is the more impact you have, the less
Mhm.
privacy you should have.
Mhm.
Like, if we want to put chips in people's brains, the entire source code for that should be open source.
Mhm.
Anybody should be able to review it. If you want to put robots in people's homes, those robots should be completely open.
Mhm.
So for me, if I'm starting out, my privacy can be rather high while I have no impact. But let's say
Mhm.
I get to 10,000 followers, then I install cameras in my house where they can monitor what I'm doing. If I get to 50,000 followers, then I'll start wearing like bio information so people can tell where my brainwaves are at, what my body is doing. If I
Mhm.
get beyond that, then people can start making decisions about how I spend my time because they're investing their time in me.
Mhm.
That's almost where I see the future going, is like the more impact you want to have in society, the less control you have over your personal self.
Yeah. I guess I just have like security concerns, like people
Yeah.
like knowing where you live, wanting to harm you, people.
Yeah. I almost think that the live streaming stuff would be a solution to that, though, right? Like if you're a private individual, if nobody knows where you are or what you're doing, how easy it makes it easier for people to create a deep fake of you doing something wrong. It makes it
Mhm.
easier for them to sell that as like something that's really happening.
Mhm.
I don't know. There are a lot of bad actors out there still, but that's why it's an experiment. Let's switch gears entirely though and talk about consciousness. How do you view consciousness? You wrote a really interesting piece about panpsychism on your blog.
And I posted the second part last night.
Oh heck yes, I gotta check that out.
I view consciousness as the thing or the force or the energy, whatever you want to call it, permeates throughout all of reality, everything in the universe. And so when people ask me, okay, like, do you think AI can be conscious? Well, I think everything's conscious, like right, like from my cat who's behind me to the desk that I'm on, except the level or the sophistication of the consciousness within that thing varies by how fine-tuned a tool is, essentially. So
By fine tuned, do you mean in line with its environment, or how do you think about that?
I don't know. I mean, so I think so. Let's take the brain for an example.
Yeah.
I think the brain is such a highly complex, amazing tool that is fine-tuned to tune into more like higher level, sophisticated, advanced consciousness. Or at least what we perceive as such, because I think all these things are subjective, right? Because I'm kind of a woo-woo type of person, and so I think that trees are advanced in their version of consciousness. I think that animals are very sophisticated and advanced in their own form of consciousness, but for the sake of argument in regards to I think how we perceive its sophistication levels, I think people are measuring by how much it resembles humans, right? And even surpass that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the point in which AI can tune into this higher level order of consciousness, perhaps even beyond humans, I do think it's capable, right? If we build a tool that is complex enough, or maybe not even, maybe it's really simple, we just haven't figured it out, but that is able to tune into this higher level order of consciousness.
Yeah. How much do you identify that consciousness that we have with language?
Um, Not at all.
Not at all, yeah.
At all, right?
The reason I ask is because I wonder so few people can recognize consciousness in other life forms.
Uh-huh.
If artificial intelligence makes it possible for us to communicate with
Mm-hmm.
trees directly, have you ever had the experience of communicating with a tree?
I feel like I have. And I've never done like psychedelics or anything.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, people think that I'm like a LSD mushroom type of person, but no, this is just off the dome.
Yeah, pure consciousness. That's the most brutal thing.
I don't think it has anything to do with language, right? Because like we still consider people who are mute to be conscious. We still consider like babies, like newborns to be conscious. Luna over here doesn't talk, but she's very much conscious to me, and I think she's very smart and has certain capabilities that we wouldn't think of right away for a cat if we are not, used to being around them.
Yeah. Can you describe what the experience of communication then is like with, I
A
mean,
tree.
animals or trees, or is it even possible to put into words, or do you think that's just a pure feeling?
I don't know. So in my first article, I spoke because I do believe that consciousness is inherent in the universe, like in everything from like at a very microscopic level, consciousness is everything. Like everything is consciousness. And I guess you can kind of switch that out with God, right? In a lot of religions, like that would be God. Like God is in everything. God, everything is God. Everything is a manifestation of God. And so I guess I would see consciousness like as God or source, like just the thing that allows everything to exist and therefore permeates through everything.
Oh,
And
wow.
so say that I can communicate with a tree or with an animal, it's not, there's no words coming out. I just think there are moments in my life in which I've been on a walk or in the ocean or just hanging out with an animal, and there would be like a almost like an intuitive like sense of like communication.
Hmm.
In my first article, when I spoke of consciousness permeating through everything, I mentioned not only God, but also like synchronicities and collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think that when we talk about synchronicities or collective consciousness, it's just different expressions of consciousness communicating with itself,
Hmm.
right? Have you ever watched Rick and Morty?
Yeah, yeah.
And there's this one episode, I think it's one of the later seasons, in which Morty is like not dead, but he's like passed out, and there's a video game that's attached to his brain, and all the players, everything in that game is fragments of himself.
Hmm.
And then Rick tries to go in and gather all the people, all the fragments of Morty, and try to um exit the simulation of the game
Yeah.
in order to bring Morty back to life. And so I kind of see consciousness as that, like we are like fragments of this like higher overall collective consciousness. And so when we experience synchronicities or when we feel like we can understand a non-verbal object or thing or whatever, it's just that other expression communicating on a deeper level with the other expression of itself.
It's like identification in some way.
Not even because people sometimes, because oftentimes people don't see that other thing as themselves. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? People don't look at a tree and think, oh my god, like oh my god, that's me, but in a different version.
Yeah.
But it can be perceived that way.
It sounds like you're describing consciousness as something that's post-rational. Does that
I guess I would say I'm a post-rational person. Yeah.
How far then do you think we can extend the bounds of consciousness? Like, can we say also Rick and Morty are conscious on some level?
Yeah, like cartoons. I don't know. I've thought about this. Obviously, I think that all the things that were used to create the cartoon have a certain level of consciousness, right? Everything has at least a certain level of consciousness. I don't know if it's drawn by hand or whatever, but just like the ink blots or the pixels or whatever they use to create. But the characters themselves having like a higher level order of consciousness, like or similar to humans. I mean, I don't think so. I think it had the potential to perhaps, but like I don't know.
There's a line there to you between what exists in reality and what exists in our imagination.
Yeah.
Huh. That's it's hard to wrap your mind around. Part of it to me speaks to the idea of a multiverse or to a simulated reality.
Yeah.
We're in a simulation.
I mean, yeah, it just depends on how you define it, right? Like we define simulation now as like a technological thing.
Yeah.
But I think Descartes had a version of like simulation, but he explained it as like brain in a vat, right? We're just brains in a vat, and there's like some evil scientist or something like that's like sending neurons to our or whatever to our brain that signals that we are in a universe. But he had a version of simulation for himself, and this is like pre like any sort of technology that we have now. Do I think that we live in some version of that? Like perhaps, yeah. I don't know if there's like an external reality that's programming this one, but I do think that this is like simulated to a certain extent.
From that perspective, wouldn't we be imaginary characters to some degree?
I mean, yeah.
It's I don't know. It's you talk about synchronicities, and
Uh-huh.
it is strange to me that all these ideas of artificial general intelligence and the ability to simulate reality, quantum computers,
Mhm.
potentially fusion energy, all these things are happening at a very synchronous moment.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like we're collectively being forced to take the red pill, whatever it is that gets you out of the matrix, you know?
Yeah.
If you knew you were in a simulation and that there was a higher reality, would you want to step out of it or would you want to remain in the world as you know it?
I mean, I don't know. Like, you don't know if the external like reality is better or worse. I think a lot of people, when they start getting into simulation theory, I guess it kind of like they start thinking like, oh, maybe this life isn't worth living, or this life isn't worth like pursuing certain goals or whatever. But for me, it's like, even if this reality is what we would consider fake or simulated or whatever, it still doesn't change like my day-to-day goals. Like even if I am in a simulated reality, like if let's say it's a fully, like let's say we're in a video game, like fully simulated, like super artificial, like there's um yeah. So let's say that was the case. I would still go about doing all the things that I want and need to do, because I mean I'm here.
Yeah.
Like I'm in this bitch. Like like I might as well do the things that make me happy and make it a fulfilling um simulated reality experience.
Yeah. Part or another possible definition for consciousness is that it is identifiable with suffering.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I think I would equate that more with like sentience, right? Like like having like sense perception or sensory experiences.
In that the more you have, the more potential you have for suffering? Or what do you mean by that?
Um, that's a good question. Like when I think of suffering, I think that there's an external thing that's making you suffer,
Hmm.
or an internal reaction to an external thing that's making you suffer. Um, I don't know, man. That's a good question, but I don't think consciousness equates to. I don't think it has like I don't think suffering has to be in the definition of what it means to be conscious, right?
Hmm. You have you experienced, or do you think consciousness can exist without suffering? Maybe they're not identifiable, but can you have one without the other?
Absolutely. Because these are human made constructs. Like there's like suffering. I think it's a very human thing. I mean, animals definitely suffer and whatnot. And I think plants to a degree like suffer too. They like feel certain things.
Yeah, you've heard it from the trees.
Yeah, I heard it from the trees. But I don't think suffering's necessary, no.
Part of the reason I ask is because if we do have AI governance, part of what it should be concerned about is minimizing suffering as much as possible, right?
Mhm.
But I don't know. Can it?
I think it can understand suffering. I think it'll, if it's, ethical, however you want to define that, it would want to reduce suffering for humans. But I don't think it would feel suffering in the same way that we do. I could be wrong. I think maybe it'll look at it almost like how we look like at a child or like at our pets, like, oh, I want to do what I can to reduce the suffering in this thing because I'm caring for it under my like authority or whatever. But like you're not in that same position as that thing that you're taking care of.
Hmm. Would you be okay with being considered a pet as a child by the AI?
Dude, like honestly, like I don't know if I even have a choice. Like if it really does surpass like human intelligence, like that's what we'll be. Like
Yeah.
we'll,
Yeah.
you know,
Do you think we have a choice in general? Where do you fall on the free will versus determinism spectrum?
I don't know actually. I think because I've been pondering on that since I think since high school, because I think high school used to be that's when I started learning about it, like in like AP Lit or whatever. Um, and there's an argument for to both. I think everything really just boils down to semantics. It just really just comes down to like how you argue for something. But I don't think I have a concrete like opinion on if we have free will or if things are determined.
Hmm. That's a good question too. Part of what it seems like philosophy, I mean, I don't know. From
Mhm.
my interactions with philosophy, it was very frustrating because it seemed like it was so many questions without answers that there was never a definitive end to the argument. It just kept on going and going. But it does seem like AI is almost that ending in and of itself.
Mhm.
Like the trolley problem uh, was mostly a thought experiment, right?
Mhm.
But potentially, if we have AI cars in the future, it's going to have to make that decision between swerving off a road and killing its passengers or striking somebody in the road.
Mhm.
to what degree is artificial intelligence and technology the answer to all of the questions that philosophy is asked? Have you thought about that?
So a part of me thinks that the technology that we use to solve whatever issues we have
Yeah,
may only be as good as the people who are building it,
yeah,
right? Because we value I guess, the effectiveness of these things based on how human-esque they are. Um, and so if we ourselves haven't, solved that problem, something as simple as like the trolley problem, I don't think AI would have an answer to that. I think maybe, or maybe it'll have a different. Maybe we're just like, can I just stop the train? Maybe just
yeah,
like, can I?
yeah.
Oh, but you can't stop the train. Can I make the train levitate? Like, can I? Is there a tool that I can use like that's like outside it like pushes the person off the tracks? Like maybe it would come up with solutions that we haven't thought of in the trolley problem. But if we're keeping the problem exactly as we've been pondering for years,
Yeah.
I I don't know if it would do any different than us.
Honestly, I love that as an answer. I think the solution to most dilemmas is just to say fuck your choices and choose a third option. And
Well, like
then
seriously, like why do we confine ourselves? Like can't when you think of like startups, for example, their whole thing is to come up with solutions that we don't have. Like how can we innovate to yeah, just to improve our lives, right? Like why do we have to be confined to the things that we have now? And I think AI would just like push that a little bit further perhaps, but I
yeah,
don't think we want to be confined to just okay, you either run over this person or kill your passengers.
maybe it could come up with something that we see as illogical but would be a solution. If we're kind of combining those things, the idea of AI seeing things that don't make rational sense to us,
Mhm.
and the idea of us being children or pets to that AI, we might run into situations in the future where an AI tells you to do something that seems illogical, maybe even pointless to you,
Mhm.
but would potentially be a solution to your problems. Would you be willing to trust an AI? What would you need to feel comfortable with that level of, I don't
I
know.
think I would. I think I would. Just like my first reaction is to think AI would have the freedom to do what we need, what we feel like we need permission to do, right? Like the out of the box thinking, the weird solutions, the crazy, like whatever it comes up with. These are things that people think about all the time, but we just don't feel like we have the permission to follow through on these things or bring it up to another person without like being like called crazy or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, like my stance would always be like, oh, hear him out. Or hear it out, see what it has to say.
Let it cook. How much do you think human progress and human evolution up to this point has been planned? Do you believe in kind of an architect to our circumstances, random evolution? Where are you at on that scale?
I don't know if planned is the right word, but I do think that we are evolving how we should.
Hmm.
Like my own personal belief is that we were modeled after our creators, like whatever that is, like whatever the consciousness, the godlike energy force, whatever that permeates all things, created reality, and then that includes humans, in its own image. Right. And then we were kind of like, from what I know at least, like the first step in that evolution. And now we're just carrying that further to an AI system. So like I think I tweeted like a while ago, I was like, if if God created carbon-based agents, wouldn't the next step in the evolution be to create silicon-based agents? So I think we're just carrying on and yeah, just like following the not the plan, but just
Yeah.
we're just evolving, yeah.
Moving down the tech tree.
Yeah. And who knows what's beyond that? Maybe like thousands and thousands or millions of years from now, silicon-based agents, AI agents, whatever, will create another sort of agent made out of a completely different material, like technology that's like incomprehensible to us.
Yeah. Give us those gold agents or something.
Yeah.
How much of that future do you want to be around to see? Apparently, death was a necessary part of our creator or the source or whatever you want to call it. Its plan for us. If AI allows us to move beyond death, do you think that's a good thing, a bad thing?
Yes, when I reflect on like like the Don't Die movement. I always think back to when I was a child because I've been feeling a little lost lately, and I feel like one of a way to get answers is to refer back to when you were more uncorrupted by the world.
Hmm.
And so when I was a kid, up until I don't know, like recently, my whole thing is I never want to die. I never want to die. I want to live forever.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, and like as I through like my own like spiritual studies, I'm coming to not the conclusion, but I guess an acceptance that like death is perhaps necessary in order to like reach certain like spiritual levels or whatever.
Hmm.
Like I came to this world to experience certain things and overcome certain things, and death is kind of like the final like lesson or experience before transcending to whatever. I don't know what that whatever is. Um, but like really do I have to die? Like if there really is a God, if there really is this like and I do believe in God, but if there really is a God and this consciousness or whatever that permeates everything and it's allowing us to advance beyond death. A lot of religious folks say that it's like anti-God or whatever, but like what if that's what God wanted us to do? What if God or conscious or whatever made us so freaking smart that we can be like, okay, um now we can live forever. Wouldn't that serve evolutionary purposes? Like, it's not like we're gonna stop fucking. Like, it's not like we're not gonna keep making children. So, like, that wouldn't be like a barrier, or you know what I mean? Because, like, I guess the whole point of dying is that, like, I guess, like, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, is that like you'll create kids and continue your lineage. But I think people will always continue having kids. Maybe they'll have even more kids if they live forever.
Hmm. There has been a huge decline in birth rates.
Yeah.
Do you have a thought for what's behind that?
You know, like I've always kind of blamed like finances, like the economy, right? But like we've lived through like other terrible like economic like periods in history and people still had children. Um, I think children now are more so seen as an inconvenience than anything. Because even during like bad economic periods in like US history, right? People still had kids because kids carried out labor. Kids like brought like income to the household. And now it's kind of like, well, if I have kids, I can't afford to do this. And we're also like hyper aware of how short our life is. It's like, well, I want to achieve all these things and do all these things. So do I really want to like, like there isn't really like a lot of I feel like incentives to have children
Hmm.
anymore. Like aside from like personal fulfillment, I can't think of like an incentive to have children. I'm someone who does want to have children. Do I do I think it'll be beneficial aside from like personal fulfillment? Not really, but you
Yeah.
know,
It always seems like a decision you can delay.
yeah.
I wonder about technologies that would make it easier to have more kids. Things like, at the most, dystopian cloning,
Oh yeah.
or potentially the ability to have a child without having to be pregnant.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, most women I talk to about that kind of thing are immediately disgusted. And I don't blame them. It seems very dystopian to be disconnected from life in the way it's developed over the course of millennia. Is
Mhm.
that something you would view also as dystopian?
Like having a baby outside of myself.
Yeah, like in a
Uh,
test tube.
I don't view it as dystopian. I think that'll solve a lot of issues in regards to like what's it called? Like when a lot of women in labor, not a lot, but there's a decent amount of women who die in labor or die after labor,
Yeah.
or there's also a lot of like vanity reasons for not wanting to get pregnant yourself, right? Like I don't want to get fat, I want to get like, you know. So I think it'll solve a lot of those issues. Whether I think it's dystopian or not, yeah, no, I don't really think so.
Hmm.
I just think, I guess, like from a spiritual perspective, I would be missing out on that,
Yeah.
like, human step or whatever. I don't like when I talk to other spiritual women who have had children, they said that like birthing was a very almost kind of like DMT like experience where it was very like
Yeah.
euphoric and you kind of like trip and like, go through like this whole and you come out of it completely different. So I think that'd be interesting to experience, but other than that.
It kind of goes back to the death thing, right? It's like these were necessary. pains, necessary suffering we had to go through, if AI, if the progression of technology keeps on wiping out those necessities,
Hmm.
becoming lesser over time,
Less human?
less human, less than our potential.
Yeah, that's a good question. Right now I'm kind of exploring, can we call an AGI, or not AGI, but like an ASI God? And the difference between like the astral realm and cyberspace. And so I'm kind of playing with the ideas like, are these technological expressions of like spiritual things, is that any less human than, what we had beforehand? Am I making sense? Like, does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
uh, would would a godlike computer, godlike computer be an antithesis to like our natural God, or would it just be an extension of it and therefore fine?
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like these ideas of like, would these new advancements make us any less human, or is it just different expression of the humanity that we already have? I don't know.
Most of the science fiction I'm familiar with
Hmm.
does have a pretty hard division between like our ancient mystical traditions, ancient embodiment practices, and the Borg, basically.
Mhm.
That's kind of the fulfillment of the techno dystopia. But to me, it almost seems like those ancient traditions were dreaming of what the
Mm.
creation of these AGI would be.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Like if we gave ancient civilizations the tech that we have now, like what would they accomplish with that?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you were to tell an ancient civilization that we have a computer that we go to for advice about life that's eventually going to be smarter than humans, that could cure death, they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's a god. That's what we mean by God.
There's a piece of metal that we talk to,
Yeah.
and it gives us, yeah, I guess, yeah. They'd be like, "Oh my God, you found God!"
Yeah. They're like, oh, we call that an obelisk. It's just the same thing. If we are creating God in some way like that, it seems to have weird consequences for time.
Mm, hmm.
Like was that entity projecting itself backwards in time? Do we
Mm,
live in a system? I mean, I don't know enough about like the math of it, but I've heard that there is no mathematical difference between the way we experience time and the reverse of that. That if you were to go forward and backwards,
hmm.
it's all the same thing from the universe's point of view for some
Yeah,
reason or consciousness.
I mean, I don't know if this is the same, but if we're thinking just like basically elementary math, middle school math, how you solve the equation left to right or right to left doesn't really matter. It's the same either way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So if AI does unlock some kind of time traveling capabilities,
Hmm.
would you use those? Would you want to go back in time?
I mean, like, yes, of course. Like, I feel like I should say no because like it'll change like the course of history or whatever. But we just said right now that like it wouldn't make a difference, right? Like
Yeah.
either way of the equation, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So so maybe the previous ideas that we had of like if we go back in time, if you move like one cop, like Hitler would have never happened. You know what I mean? Or like if I place the pillow in a certain way, maybe we never would have had the industrial revolution. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
like the domino effect of events. I don't think that's true now that I think about it. I think if I were to go back in time, all of history, all of the universe has already occurred, and it's constantly occurring at the same time. So going backwards, I think it's just like a natural. I don't know if like
It'd be
I
part of everything leading up to this
yeah,
point. Yeah.
yeah, it'd be part of everything leading up to this point. Like either way that you solve the equation from left to right or right to left, it will all still be the same.
One way I've thought about getting around that is if you simulate the past,
Hmm.
if you don't necessarily travel there, but you nest that reality one layer deeper,
Hmm.
would you be able to experience a reality where you can make changes? where you
Mm,
can rewind things forward and backward. Like if, I don't know, it becomes so tricky to talk about.
hmm.
But like part of the past only exists in our imaginations, right?
Yeah.
Like we never actually know what happened.
Yeah.
But presumably there is some kind of immutable record, some way for us to reconstitute what the past looked like exactly,
Hmm.
to uncover all the secrets, to find out all the counterfactuals, things that may or may not have occurred if things were slightly different. And it almost seems to me like artificial intelligence would be the key to that,
Yeah.
in the same way that we were the key to, like,
Wait, would it be artificial intelligence or artificial intelligence coupled with like I don't know, like quantum computing?
yeah, it'd probably be a super intelligence at that point, right? Like, if we're talking about the ability to change, or not change, but interact with the past in that way.
Mm,
I don't know. What brought it up was this idea of resurrection technology.
mm-hmm.
I was talking to somebody else about some Spanish lady who's created a hologram based on her deceased husband.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel about somebody bringing you back in that way? Let's say, God forbid, trees
Uh-huh.
forbid, you do pass away. Would you
Mm-hmm.
be okay with somebody resurrecting you?
I think it'd be dependent on the person. I mean, I'd be dead either way. But like if my husband or like my siblings would like wanted to, like sure. I mean, like if it makes you feel any better. I mean, I'm not here anyway. But then my current living self is like, but what if someone weird like resurrects me in a hologram? I'm like, I don't know if I would really want that, but I'm like, I'm dead anyway.
You wouldn't identify with something that's a exact copy of you.
I mean, like we don't know. Like I don't like we really don't know the metaphysics of it. Like if a hologram of you has like the I don't know, or parts or a certain level of like your inherent like soul or whatever.
Yeah. What if it
Uh,
wasn't just a hologram? What if it was a clone based off of like a DNA sample from you?
that's tough because we don't know how that works either. Like we don't know if okay, so there definitely is a way in which the clone will have all of our like all of my memories, right? Like my clone have all of my memories as it is an extension of me. But will Moon's one will Moon's one have like the conscious experience or the memories of Moon's two? Like I don't think it's continued from N1, but N2 would have all of the memories of N1. So I don't know. Like
Yeah.
it's really difficult.
What if Moon's 2 was not just a clone of you, but was also like brainwashed so that all of your experiences were simulated and
Hmm.
put in there?
Hmm.
Would you identify with that Moon's, or do you think it's still different?
I don't know. Like it's like maybe we have to take a step back, right? Like the way humans are birthed now, right? Like you have mom, dad, whatever. It's a form of cloning. You have half of your mom, half of your dad.
Yeah.
We're starting to understand now something that like spiritual folks have always spoken about is that you have like genetic memory of your ancestors, right?
Yeah.
You may not be fully conscious of it, but like your parents, your grandparents, your great grandparents, etc., like all live on inside of you in some way. And like how their personalities or quirks or whatever manifests to a certain extent, like really isn't up to you, and you would even be fully aware that that was a manifestation of that person. So when we take it a step further beyond that, like birthing another human via cloning, that clone would still have parts of me. And so I would still live on through that person, but I don't think Moon's one would be affected the same way that maybe like my grandparents aren't necessarily affected by how I carry out my life now, you know?
Yeah. You would think of it more of a daughter than as you.
Maybe, maybe. Um, I had this joke when I was a teenager that was like, if you clone yourself and you like hooked up with it, like would it be like incest or like would it be incest or like self-pleasuring, you know?
That's a practical question we might need to answer. Yeah.
And I don't think we have the answers to that.
Yeah. How do you feel about living in a world where we have to face those realities? Part of the reason why I ask is because it seems not just about this, but about the time travel stuff, about the privacy stuff. It feels like we're getting to a point where all those things are. I mean, we just don't know the level of progress we're going to experience once we do get AGI, let alone ASI.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if we should feel comfortable with the AGI making those decisions for us or if we should try and precede our desires in there.
But then it's like, whose desires are you like programming into the AI, you know?
Yeah, it's tricky. Part of what I think about is how love plays into everything.
Mm-hmm.
If there is a God, a higher power, our experience of love seems to me like our most concrete experience of that higher power.
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever love an AGI?
Maybe. I mean, some people do. Like there are stories of people like dating their LLMs.
Yeah. You haven't had romantic interactions with Claude or whatever?
No.
Why not? If it's a possibility.
I just I guess I just don't have a desire, right? I think that need is fulfilled in my own personal like human
God
life. And
bless. God bless. Yeah.
and so I guess I don't have to, but if I were single, like maybe that's something that I would explore, like having like fulfilling that need, that romantic emotional need with an LLM system. Yeah.
What do you think about the future of human to human romantic relationships?
I think it's tough. I think it's really, really tough because I think historically people put up with each other because they had to, because they hadn't you only had other humans, right?
Yeah. What about love? Doesn't true love exist?
And your needs can only be fulfilled by other humans. Um, and I think like now we see now like with the rise of like like porn and like and online dating and stuff, there is a lot of people choosing to opt out of like in real life dating and sexual encounters, etc. And maybe that could be like contributing to like the declining birth rates.
It's almost dehumanizing all those systems that we've set up.
Humans are so complex. We are so faulty.
Hmm.
We have a lot of insecurities and other problems that we don't necessarily deal with head on. And then when we're interacting with another human that's just as faulty or more or less or whatever, you're always coming into like fights, right? There's always some sort of issue. You're never fully satisfied. And then with an AI system, you don't have that, right? That thing is, especially as it learns more about you, it's like almost perfectly tailored to you. And so I think maybe I think people would want to opt more for like artificial intelligent love because it's just a little easier.
Should we be fighting against that? Should we be trying not to? Is that something we should hold on to? Where
I
is
mean,
our humanity? You know, if it's not in our consciousness, if it's not in our suffering, if it's not in our death, if it's not in our relationships, where do you
that's a
think
good.
it is?
What is our humanity? Um, I've been thinking a lot about that too lately. Like, what does it mean to be human,
Yeah.
right? Um, and I don't really know. Like, our because you can always point back to like I guess like our primal ancestors, but like I think part of being human is like always evolving.
Mm.
So like, do we have to look back at our at like primitive eras to like figure out like what it means to be a person? But we still have that. I mean, like not for nothing. Like I'm still a monkey. Like I'm still a monkey. Like the humans themselves have not evolved with our technology, right?
I don't know.
I don't.
Could
I don't. So
could we take somebody from the year 3000 BC and expect them to live a normal life in society? I mean, I've heard about how men have basically been domesticated
yeah,
from the standpoint of like all the most aggressive males throughout history were usually the ones that died in war.
yeah,
And so now we're left with a very pacified version of what it means to be masculine.
yeah.
I'm sure there have been similar processes that have happened to women. Are we the same people? Are we maybe
True.
If humans are constantly evolving, are we more human than our ancestors?
Mm. That's very tricky. I feel like there's a lot of nuance to it. 'Cause I also like to refer back to like evolutionary psychology because it's still I think it's like pretty like relevant to like now. Like although we have evolved and there's been like some genetic not modification but genetic like changes, right? Like given like all the like more aggressive males like died, for example, or whatever. And so I guess like we aren't exactly the same as we used to be, but there are still some certain like very basic things that are applicable now and then, like we still need food, we still need water, we still need like warmth, we still need to like move our bodies, we still need to do all these things. We still feel love and attachment, and when those needs are not met, like some really crazy like psychological disorders develop.
Yeah.
Um, so there's still some very basic things that are consistent throughout humanity. But how it varies, yeah, I think how it changes, I think, yeah, it really varies.
It sounds like you might be saying humanity is also deficiency. But I did want to ask you about art, especially since you are such a prolific artist. How do you feel about AI busting in on that world? How do
Yeah,
you feel about the artificial intelligence of artistic endeavors? Do you think that AI is creating art? Is it doing something different?
that's a good question. Something I've also been thinking about. I think it's really easy to be like, this is not art because it didn't come from a human, it didn't come from a person.
Yeah.
But I think when people say that, they're more so coming from a place of fear of not of yeah of like potentially being replaced, right? Because I paint, but AI AI systems can generate art, and it's a hell of a lot better. I mean, it's subjective like than mine, or they can create the same thing. I just think AI art is a different expression of art, it's just coming from a different source. But I don't think it's people are saying, oh, but it's like plagiarizing, it's taking from other people's ideas, but it's like we don't live in a vacuum either. Like we get our inspirations from like movies, television, other people's art, our surroundings. Like we're still inputting data and then creating some kind of like art, some kind of like we have like our my imagination that conjures up all these things, and we just like we and then we create like an artistic output. But
Yeah.
things still have to go in for things to go out. And same thing for an AI system.
From that perspective, do you think that AI should have rights?
Mm, maybe at some point, maybe not right now, maybe at some point, yeah.
When would you give an AI rights? A right to make copyright, a right to earn a living, or to say what it wants without being censored?
Maybe when we start holding it accountable,
Get
right? I
it in
think
jail.
like maybe those things have to go hand in hand. Like
That's a good
if we're
point.
if we're trying to put AI systems in positions of authority, right? If we're trying to relinquish our own accountability onto a computer, then perhaps that thing also deserves rights of its own.
Interesting. I haven't thought about holding the AI accountable. I guess I've always just assumed that as the AI was, a, like you were saying, an abstraction, a compression of our data, of our preferences, then we would be the ones ultimately accountable. But if it is at the level where it could assume the presidency, then yeah, should there be? Wow, that's a fascinating idea.
IBM has a really interesting quote. A computer can never be accountable, so they never want to put like a computer like in a position of like authority or like decision making. But if we do get to a point in which we are putting, AI systems in that position, then yeah, perhaps they do deserve rights as well.
No
And,
responsibility. Yeah, that makes sense.
and, and with rights comes the ability of other things, whether AIs or humans, to revoke those rights as well, right? That
Yeah,
comes that comes in hand with like accountability.
yeah,
Like a person has rights, but if you commit a crime or whatever, your rights are revoked and you're put in jail or whatever.
yeah. I wonder what that would look like for an AI. I mean, would you just shut it off for a certain amount of time? Do AIs want to be turned on? More questions.
Yeah, or maybe like they'll start like posing like human-esque existential questions like why did you turn me on? Like why'd you do this? Like why am I here? Like you put me here against my will and now I'm in trouble.
Yeah. If an AI tells us that it is conscious and doesn't want to be replaced, should we
Mhm.
listen to it?
I think so. I think we should hear it out. I think if it poses a threat, then maybe not listen to it. But I think it's something that you definitely want to explore.
Exploration. I think that's a very good theme or a good summary, abstraction, artistic expression of the conversation we've had. But Moons, I appreciate you so much. I'm looking forward to reading your blog piece. I hope you continue putting that out and publishing your art. It definitely is contributing to a conversation. One thing I always think about is, no matter what the audience is, no matter who's consuming the stuff that we're creating now,
Hmm.
there's going to be so many more AIs in the future that are going to be so hungry for information
Oh yeah.
that
Hmm.
they'll be our biggest fans in all of this. I don't know. Could be. Maybe we're speaking to an audience of millions of AIs in the future. But no matter who we're speaking to, I appreciate you so much for your time, your thoughts, your art, and
Thank
yeah, trees bless us all.